challenge actually from George Evans coming across on Kiko Femenia. He left Femenia crumpled in a heap mine, but to me he got plenty of the ball. Referee seems to agree it's a corner rather than a free kick. And he takes the ball with his right boot. Evans maybe just catches Femenia with his trailing left, but not much he can do to help that, in all honesty. So still a chance from the set play for Watford. In fact, the free kick has been given, so referee Jeff Eltringham wasn't happy with the follow through from George Evans. So it's 10 yards closer in than a corner, about 3 or 4 yards outside of the penalty area, so it does spell an opportunity this for Watford to whip the ball in. Femenia's back on his feet, incidentally, and okay. Sema is the man standing over the ball. It'll be a left-footed outswinger. Wilmot's forward from the back. Chosta-Kong's in there as well. Kabasele also. So all three centre-backs have gone forward. I say João Pedro's a bit of an aerial threat himself. Sema will look to get the delivery right. He's in towards the near post. João Pedro attacks it. Evans gets a bit of a block in. It comes to Femenia just inside the penalty area on his unfavoured left boot, and he sends that well over the top of the crossbar. They'll probably make that the first attempt on or off target in the game. Not that it will live long in the memory from Kiko Femenia. Derby defended that pretty well, in all honesty. Goal kick now for the home side. I say that this poor home record so far this season. 3 games in all competitions at home, lost all 3, conceded 8, scored just 1. No goals so far on home soil in the Championship this season. Goals have been a problem for both sides really so far this campaign. As Femenia, was he fouled again there? Yes, he was. This time it's Dwayne Holmes who's committed the infringement. Taking a few bumps and bruises in this game so far, Kiko Femenia. No qualms about that one though, as Watford work the free kick short. Sema, a more central role momentarily, finds Kabasele, whose pass forward is intercepted by Buchanan, but it just comes straight back to Christian Kabasele, who's again a little bit loose with his pass. Forces Chosta-Kong to scramble a little, but Watford do retain possession, and just a sign over the last 5 minutes or so that they're just slightly edging this arm wrestle. 54% possession they've had over the course of the opening 19 and a bit minutes. Still Derby 0, Watford 0, the first match of the Championship since the international break. Full programme in the Championship and the Premier League over the course of the weekend. This, the curtain raiser, if you like. Matt Clark for Derby. Short it back to Curtis Davis. Again, neither side taking any chances. They've been quick to use their goalkeepers. Both David Marshall and Ben Foster haven't had a save to make between them, but they've seen plenty of the ball at their feet as Matt Clark slices the ball out of play there for Derby. And lacking a bit of quality so far, it has to be said. Ngaki is throwing there. João Pedro trying to apply that with the flick, but he couldn't find Chalobah. Derby will now bring it clear. Shinnie into the feet of Holmes. Takes out his feet nicely, and he's holding off Tom Cleverley well there, Dwayne Holmes. Waits for the support now, which comes in the form of Nathan Byrne on the right-hand side, but his cross is too deep for Rooney. It was Knight who got in the middle alongside Wayne Rooney. Buchanan will retrieve on the left-hand side, though. He rides the challenge of Ngakia, and it takes Domingos Quina coming across to stop Lee Buchanan, but only at the expense of the game's first corner, which comes the way of Derby County. Well, really, Buchanan, because there was nothing on when he gathered that ball on the far side. Managed to skip past Ngakia, who wasn't strong enough in the challenge, really. The wing-back needed the help of Quina to bail him out. Rooney will take this corner in. Swinger from the Derby left, whipped into the 6-yard box. Oh, it was there to be attacked. Ben Foster was left glued on his line. It was Matt Clark, the nearest Derby player to it, the only one who was trying to really throw himself at it in truth. He couldn't quite get there in time. I think, in fairness, it was decent defending from Ben Wilmot just to hold him off and block that run. Lots of players though for both teams as that ball came in. Very static. Can't really ask for a better delivery than that from Wayne Rooney. I'll be a bit mystified that no one other than Clark was trying to attack the ball. Gave him a few chances so far. That has to go down as a missed one, really, for Derby. You have possession again with their goalkeeper, David Marshall. It's out towards the left-hand side. Buchanan heads it on. No player in white there. It's picked up by Troost-Ekong instead for Watford. Now Wilmot. Closed down by Dwayne Holmes. Let's wave it there, Ben Wilmot. And tidies up by going back to Foster, who puts his foot through the ball in no-nonsense fashion. Derby, though, quick to win it back. Buchanan into Shinnie. Return now to Lee Buchanan. Those two play a couple of 1-2s before Shinnie looks to shift it out towards Nathan Byrne on the right-hand side, who does well to get it under control with his chest. Evans will now go all the way back to David Marshall, and Derby will build from the back again. Clark. That's a good balance to a back three, Matt Clark, a naturally left-footed central defender, and that's a searching ball down the line for Rooney to chase. Kabasele appears to have it under control, but his clearance only comes to Buchanan. There's a wild challenge coming in there from Chalobah to try and stop Buchanan getting to the ball, and he upended the Derby wing-back. Possibly could have been a yellow card that for Nathaniel Chalobah. I think Jeff Eltringham is going to keep his cards in his pocket. It's a ball to be challenged for, in fairness to Chalobah. Once he went to ground there, he did run the risk of, at the very least, giving away a free kick, and it's a free kick in a dangerous area as well. Rooney once again standing over it, left of centre, maybe a little bit too wide for a direct shot towards goal. It's about 2 or 3 yards away from the corner of the box. Similar position to where Rooney had a free kick inside the opening couple of minutes, which he sent straight into the gloves of Ben Foster. We're looking for a bit more quality on this occasion. We saw quality from his last corner. What can the Derby skipper conjure up on this occasion? Just a two-man Watford wall. Rooney will actually strike towards goal. It hit that wall. João Pedro, the man who got in the way, deflects behind for a corner. Rooney frustrated. Wasn't one of his finest efforts. The pressure was in the better position. He put his hands on his head. Perhaps realising that. More communication perhaps needed between the two central defenders. Would have been a difficult one for either player to have scored. Not to try and generate a lot of the power themselves, but certainly Evans was in the better position to do that. Chance though going in Kabasele. Goes back to Ben Foster. Plenty of touches with his feet so far, the Watford stopper. Puts the ball up, Sema flicks it on. Davis is there to tidy up though for Derby. David Marshall now just clips the ball out to the right hand side. Wilmot beats Holmes in the air, as you would expect. Dwayne Holmes not the biggest player. Troost-Ekong now will be able to get hold of the ball for Watford. Goes back to Foster. Now Kabasele being closed down by Knight. Plays it down the line to Ngakia. Chalobah now around the corner, flicked on by Kenya, but to no one in particular. Sema and João Pedro basically standing on each other's heels in the centre circle there. Do win it back though, and Ken Sema has it. Nice flick from him into Cleverley. Can he take it in his stride? He's driving towards the penalty area. He tries to slide it through towards João Pedro. Important interception from Curtis Davis. Now Derby can look to break forward themselves down there left with Buchanan. He goes down the line to Knight, who's being marshalled by Kabasele. The Irish international comes in field now to Shinnie. Bird. Work back out to the left with Buchanan. We've got everyone back behind the ball now. Derby will have to adopt a more probing approach. Evans to Davis, who looks over the top, but it's a very wayward ball from Curtis Davis, and that will run harmlessly through to Ben Foster. Still Derby 0, Watford 0. We're still awaiting the first shot on target in this game. We have had one shot really so far that went over the crossbar. Kiko Femenia for Watford as Derby failed to fully clear a free kick into the area, but Femenia's effort went well over the top of the target. At the other end, Derby have had a few nearly moments from set pieces. Wayne Rooney's had a free kick deflected behind for a corner, and from one Rooney corner there was half a chance for Matt Clark, who threw himself at the ball but couldn't quite get there. No one else was really reacting in a Derby shirt to what was a really good corner into the box from Rooney. As it stands, it remains very much 0-0. Yeah, it's difficult to see where the opening goal is going to come from, really, in truth, so far. Very even contests, dare I say. Both sides playing free at the back and wing backs. They're cancelling each other out at the moment. A goal, a moment of magic of some degree, would potentially spring the match to life. Marshall sends the ball long for Derby. Rooney jumps, but he's beaten to it by Kabasele. Curtis Davis now for Derby. Down the line to Buchanan. Buchanan's ball up to Rooney. Nice chest from Rooney into the path of Jason Knight. Knight struggling to get the ball under his control, and Ngakia gets back. His challenge only ricochets the ball to Holmes. Ngakia again with the interception. And then it's the Watford right wing back who slices the clearance out of play for a throw. Plenty of that actually so far. Lots of sliced clearances, rather anxious balls, if you like, being played. Getting a sign that two teams just have had a disjointed build-up to this match. Buchanan will take this throw in for Derby. We've already seen in this game he's got a longish throw. Goes short this time to Bird. We'll get the break of the ball. His attempted pass was intercepted. Bird now pulls it back to Holmes. Rooney on the edge of the area. Can't find a route to goal. Instead goes right to Nathan Byrne, who should be able to get across, and he does. It's a decent ball. Important header away by Troster Kong. It comes to Buchanan on the edge of the area. He tries to tee up Rooney. Dancing feet from Wayne Rooney. He's eventually stopped by Kabasele, and now there could be a Watford counter-attack on. Chalobah, oh, it's a poor ball to Ken Sema. They were too close to each other there. Chalobah playing it behind Sema as well. It allowed Derby players to get back and get an interception in. Otherwise it looked like being a promising Watford counter-attack. There were 4 or 5 players getting forward in yellow. As the ball is picked up by Matt Clark now for Derby. To Curtis Davis. Ball on the corner to Holmes, who miscontrols. Femenia tidies up for Watford. Femenia now infield to Wilmot. Strokes it across the edge of his own penalty area to Christian Kabasele. We should be taught growing up, didn't we, not to play across your own penalty area, but these days with the passing football out from the back that is pretty much exclusively played by all managers, I think it's actively encouraged as Kenya goes for a more direct approach. Over the top towards Sep. Twists, turns, tees up Chalobah. Space for Femenia on the left-hand side. Crossing position. Poor ball though from Femenia. Blocked by the first man, Nathan Byrne. And have to play for a Watford throw. 1 or 2 signs the game might just be starting to come to life. We've had over half an hour of the contest at Pride Park now. Still Derby 0, Watford 0. Femenia will take this throw in for the visitors. Finds Cleverley, who returns it to the Spaniard. Tom Cleverley once more. Watford forced backwards. Wilmot in towards Kabasele, who just misjudged the bounce there. Christian Kabasele just spun off a little bit quicker than he was expecting off the slick surface, and Jason Knight was quick to react to the danger, but Kabasele was able to get a toe to the ball, at least stab it out of play for a throw into Derby, which will be taken by Lee Buchanan. 19-year-old who has scored for Derby this season, Lee Buchanan. So last season, in fact, he grabbed his first goal for the club. For the hosts, to Shinnie. We'll switch it back out to Buchanan. Clark now. There's a little give and go with Buchanan. Turnbull, though, is intercepted by Kabasele, but his clearance down the line is poor. Comes to Bird for Derby. Now Shinnie round the corner. Holmes, space to drive forward. He might fancy a crack, Dwayne Holmes. In the end, he shifts it out to Byrne instead on the right-hand side. He's already delivered a couple of good crosses. This one not so good as it's headed away by Chalobah. Be gathered again, though, by George Evans for Derby. He lifts it into the area. Throws to Kongs this time there to intercept for Watford. Now they can look to break forward again, the visitors. João Pedro turning, holding it up, but he's muscled off it by Max Bird. Shinnie now. Squirms it out to Buchanan. Back into Shinnie once again. Derby looking to do a bit of probing. Shinnie up towards the edge of the penalty area. Back out to Buchanan. First time cross from him is deep towards the far post. Headed away unchallenged by Femenia. Derby get to the loose ball though. It's Nathan Byrne on the right hand side. Pulls it back to Evans. Now Davis to Clark. It's on the edge of the centre circle, the Derby centre back. To Knight now. Goes on the overlap around Lee Buchanan. Back into Clark. Probing from Derby. Buchanan's ball wasn't controlled by Shinnie, but Bird's able to pick it up. Now Graham Shinnie will switch from left to right. Burnley target, gets it under control. Tries to slip it around the corner to Holmes. Wilmot read the situation though. Nice turn from Femenia on the left hand side. Sema now trying to squeeze the ball down the line, and it's deflected off Max Bird and out of play for a Derby County, a Watford throw-in. 33.5 minutes on the clock. Derby 0, Watford 0 it remains. Oh, it's a classic so far, this one, it has to be said. Looking at the statistics, Derby now edging the possession 55%. A real lack of shots on or off target, none on target so far, no saves for David Marshall or Ben Foster to make. Both sides need to improve in that department. There's enough attacking quality on the pitch to see more of that. Femenia on the left hand side has had a shot off target. We skip past Byrne really nicely, pulls it back towards Sema. Bird does enough to put Ken Sema off. It was a bit of a swing and a miss from Sema, but Holmes takes a chance, the necessary chance in his own half. It's Wilmot who picks it up, and the centre back gets to the byline. Tries to dink across into the area. You only find the gloves of David Marshall, who is now worked, although certainly not overstretched as he claimed that ball unopposed. It was better though from Watford, pressing a little bit higher up the pitch. It's been a bit too easy, particularly for the Derby centre backs in possession. They've not been closed down anywhere near enough. Both centre backs really, both sets of centre backs have had plenty of time on the ball. Kabasele, one of those centre backs. Now to Femenia on the left hand side. Again, he'll look to take on Nathan Byrne, who's helped out by Dwayne Holmes. Good ball down the line though from Femenia. Sema will get a low cross into the box. The target was João Pedro, and it's a very important interception from Curtis Davis to turn it behind for a corner. Nicely worked out by Watford. Sema was onside when Femenia played the reverse pass. He saw João Pedro make the dart towards the near post, but so did Curtis Davis, using all that experience there. Derby's number 33 was able to intercept the ball. Number 33, age 35, Davis, a very experienced central defender. As I say, lots of injury problems last season, but back playing regularly this. Sema sends the resulting corner into the box, headed away by Byrne. Get his head to the ball for a second time. But Watford will come again. Sema lifts the ball into the box. Bird this time there to head away. Cleverly picks up the pieces for Watford. Now Jeremy Ngakia. There's a loose ball from him. Easily intercepted by Holmes, but Holmes then just returns it to Ngakia. João Pedro, good footwork. Works out to the right hand side. Kenya, edge of the Derby box. Goes for a little give and go with João Pedro trying to roll it through the legs of Bird, who wasn't having any of it. Derby can now bring it clear with Knight. But Ngakia on the cover does better there to tidy up. 8.5 minutes plus stoppage time to play at the end of the first half. Derby 0, Watford 0. Kiko Femenia in possession for Watford, into Chalobah. Troster-Kong. Down the line to Ngakia. Space to run into now for the Watford wing-back. Uses that space and then finds Cleverly, who's whip ball out to the left, just about finds Femenia, but that's where it breaks down. Interception coming in from Shinnie, who was fouled there, I think, by Nathaniel Chalobah. Be a free kick to Derby inside their own half. Graham Shinnie, signed last summer from Aberdeen. 6 caps for Scotland. Featured more regularly at the start of this season than he did during his first campaign with Derby. Played in all 4 of their championship games so far this term. As David Marshall clips the free kick long for Derby. Rooney chests it down, but only into Domingos Quinha's feet. Ngakia now for Watford. The ball lifted over the top, is headed away by Clark, and again onto the chest of Wayne Rooney. He's really utilising those chest muscles this evening. Buchanan now into the feet of the Derby skipper. Max Bird out to Evans. Himself in a little bit of a tangle there and ends up squeezing the ball down the line. It hits off the corner flag actually, but spins out of play for a goal kick rather than a throw-in. Which Watford will take short. Foster to Kabasele. Watford, of course, boy, the squad's looking a little bit thin at the moment with injuries and players not fully fit. Some players who were seeking moves as well that are out of the first team picture. There were reports that Etienne Capoue, who wanted to leave the club, was linked with Valencia last month, wasn't he? But the move hasn't been forthcoming, and he's now seen set to stay and fight for a first team place. He's back training with the first team, and there was a suggestion he would be involved this evening. He's not quite deemed ready. Next to Troy Deeney, Ismaila Sarr will be back in the fold soon, you'd imagine. Still players like Isaac Success, Andre Gray, who haven't featured this season for Watford at the club. It's a big squad that Vladimir Ivic has. On the bench there's not much at the moment as Tom Cleverly gives the ball away. It's straight to Jason Knight. Knight for Derby. He's got Rooney on his outside. Rooney will try and pull it back to Knight. Instead it comes to Holmes. This is a chance. Dwayne Holmes lifts the ball over the top of the crossbar. It's the first real opening either side has had in the game so far. Poor from him in the middle of the park, giving it away cheaply. Knight found Rooney, who cleverly pulled the ball back. And there was Holmes. Just maybe took a little bit too long. His first touch didn't fully get out of his feet, and he's had to dig it out in the end. Digs it over the crossbar. Much to the relief of Watford's captain, Tom Cleverly. But as I was saying, Watford don't have that many options on the bench. There's James Garner on loan from Manchester United, Glenn Murray an attacking option, Craig Cathcart defensive option, but a few youngsters on there as well. Derby is still waiting for some of their players to come back or get some new signings up to speed, like Kazim Richards, like Jordan Ibe. They do have the likes of Tom Lawrence, Jamal Hector Ingram, Morgan Whittaker on the bench, Craig Forsyth as well, plenty of experience. As we stand, the 22 players out there have not been able to muster any real out-and-out goal-scoring opportunities. That one we just saw for Holmes is as close as either side have come, and that would probably not come down as a half opportunity even. Difficult for Holmes to have scored from there with the amount of bodies in front of him. As George Evans picks the ball up for Derby. Finds Bird. Very cultured and playing in the middle of the park. Max Bird. Watford though turn over the possession. Foster to Ngakia. To Chalobah. Last touch comes off Bird, so it will be a Watford throw-in. 4 minutes plus stoppage time to play at the end of the first half. Derby 0, Watford 0. Ngakia takes the throw into Quinha. More assured touch there from Cleverly. Guides it back to Troster-Kong. That one wasn't so good though from Semu. Feels he was fouled. He stayed down. Derby will look to slide it through with Rooney looking to pick out either Shinnie or Holmes, who both burst forward. There's an important interception there from William Troster-Kong. Had he not got there, then the ball would have fell to either of those two players and it would have been a real chance for Derby to take the lead. Sema back on his feet, by the way. He gave the ball away. It'll lead to that potential Derby opening as the home side will come forward again. Appears to be ending this first half strongly. Shinnie to Bird. Holmes a bit caught on his heels there, wasn't expecting the pass from Bird. He then fouls for Menia. And stayed down actually as well, Dwayne Holmes. He fouled for Menia, then went in on a challenge with Kabasele. It was Nathan Byrne, it was. It was okay though, he's held back to his feet. Free kick to Watford though, midway inside their own half. William Troost-Ekong will take. Feed it out to the right hand side. Glenn Murray just in shot on our pictures. We'll bring you independent off-tube studio commentary. Feels like the kind of game he could thrive in. There's a lot of long balls being played forward to João Pedro, who hasn't really been able to hold it up too often. I mean, that's his bread and butter. Yet to score since arriving at Watford on loan from Brighton for the season. The experienced striker. Ball played down the line by there from Menia. Sema gets a cross in. Derby wanted an offside. It wasn't forthcoming. Bird's there to tidy up anyway. And the ball's lost, and there's a shot that comes in from 30 yards out there from Cleverley, always rising well over the top of the crossbar, but at least it was another shot in anger in the game. Although be nothing more than a goal kick for Derby. Watford probably looking most dangerous when they get Kiko Femenia going forward down the left-hand side. Him and Sema have linked up to reasonable effect so far. Just lacking that final end product, if you like. As Marshall sends the goal kick long for Derby, flicked on by Buchanan. It was a decent first half. Knight not on further to Rooney, who kept it in, but only at the expense of Christian Kabasele getting hold of the ball for Watford. Ben Foster's pass out to the left. And for a moment, like it wouldn't have the legs to reach for Menia. It did. Just. Wilmot now for Watford. Into Troost-Ekong. Looking for some options in front of him. Goes to the right with Ngakia. He's good at that. Ngakia steps in field and tries to poke it through to Sema, who might have been offside anyway. Ball was a little bit too pacey for him to get on the end of regardless. Marshall able to come and scoop up the pieces for Derby. Looking to work the ball forward, but Holmes can't squeeze it through to Shinnie. Tidied up by Wilmot, who goes back to Foster. Now Christian Kabasele for Watford. Down the line to Ngakia. Goes infield. It's a loose ball. Played in now by Byrne for Derby and Holmes. He's nutmegged Wilmot. That's good play from Dwayne Holmes. He's got Rooney to his right. Knight to his left. Rooney was probably the ball. He went for Knight and it was intercepted by Kabasele. Again, just a lack of quality in the final third. The undoing for both teams at the moment. Sema squeezes it into the path of Kinya. Now out to the left with Kiko Femenia, who's looking to attack Nathan Byrne once again. Can he get a cross in? He loops it towards the far post. Down goes Tom Cleverley in the area. Looking, I think, and looking is probably the right word for a foul. It was Lee Buchanan, the Derby player, around him, but I think Cleverley was doing more of the holding. Regardless, that is actually the final act of the first half. A first half that, unfortunately, will not live long in the memory. Not many chances to speak about. No shots on target so far. So it's no surprise that at the break it is Derby 0, Watford 0. Derby 0, Watford 0 at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet. And he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby 0, Watford 0. Derby 0, Watford 0 at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet. And he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby 0, Watford 0. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet, and he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet, and he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet, and he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet, and he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet, and he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet, and he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet, and he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet, and he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet, and he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet, and he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet, and he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet, and he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet, and he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet, and he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet, and he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet, and he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet, and he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet, and he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet, and he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet, and he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet. And he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they have not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet. And he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they have not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet. And he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they have not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet. And he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they have not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet. And he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they have not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet. And he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they have not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet. And he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they have not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet. And he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they have not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet. And he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they have not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby nil, Watford nil at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet. And he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they have not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby nil, Watford nil. Derby 0, Watford 0 at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet. And he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby 0, Watford 0. Derby 0, Watford 0 at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet. And he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby 0, Watford 0. Derby 0, Watford 0 at half-time. A game that will not live long in the memory so far, unfortunately. No shots on target in that opening 45. The best effort came late in the half. Wayne Rooney involved for Derby. He pulled it back for Dwayne Holmes on the edge of the area. His shot, though, he's digging out of his feet. And he was always sending it over the top of the crossbar. Kiko Femenia has looked lively down the left for Watford, but they've not really created anything of note. At half-time, it's Derby 0, Watford 0. And it's a very warm welcome back to our independent off-tube studio commentary of this championship clash between Derby and Watford. I'm Tom McGarry, and I'll be talking you through all the second half coverage. Hopefully it's a second period that's considerably better than the first, shall we say. Not a shot on target between the two sides. Very much the nillest of nil-nils, if you like. One talking point actually to bring you from the half-time break. One of the assistant referees, James Wilson, has had to go off at half-time. Tim Robinson, the fourth official, has replaced him. So it's the most dramatic thing that's probably happened in the game so far. Hopefully James Wilson is okay. Second half underway. No changes to the respective starting 11s for the two sides. Derby going from left to right in this second half, but it's Watford in possession. Ben Wilmot plays the ball down the line and gets it back off Femenia. We run you through the two 11s then. Both sides playing with back threes this evening. Marshall in goal for Derby. Evans, Davis and Clark are the central defenders, with Byrne and Buchanan as the wing backs. Holmes, Knight, Shinnie and Bird in front of that, with Rooney leading the line up front for Watford. Foster in goal, Troster Kong, Kabasele and Wilmot are the back three, and Gakia and Femenia are the wing backs. Cleverly, Chalobah and Kinya. Cleverly and Chalobah are in the middle, with Kinya and Sema supporting João Pedro up front. So second half underway. Going for Derby down their right hand side, taken by Nathan Byrne. We'll get a second bite of the cherry now as last touch there comes off Femenia. Chance to perhaps see a long throw into the box. Holmes appears to be winding one up. He's drying the ball underneath his shirt there. The American does possess a lengthy throw when required. That's exactly what's going to come. Looped towards the edge of the 6-yard box. Clark the target. Troster Kong gets up and is able to clear for Watford. Ball sent back into the Hornets penalty area, but claimed by Ben Foster, who quickly distributes the ball on the half volley there up to João Pedro, whose control was exquisite. And that will surely be a Watford throw-in. Yes, it will. George Evans just poked it away from João Pedro as he controlled, but brilliant touch from the Brazilian. Just looking at Wayne Rooney's touch map from the first half, he had plenty of touches of the ball, but only one inside Watford's penalty area. He's very much the lone striker for Derby this evening. That's something that will need to change, you feel. To go on and win this game, as Max Bird has it for the hosts, but ball through is asking too much of Holmes. Wilmot will gather instead for Watford. Now for Menia down the left-hand side. Into Cleverly. So they clip the ball over the top early. Give me João Pedro, who chests it into the path of Sema on the left. Ken Sema looking to take on Curtis Davis, who gets a toe in. It will be a Watford throw. Most of the decent play from Watford in an attacking sense did come down their left-hand side during the first half with Femenia and Sema. Glenn Murray might be getting ready to come on. He's just seems to be lacing up his boots. That remains to be seen. Only 3 minutes or so into this second period, still Derby 0, Watford 0. For many have felt that should have been a Watford throw-in, but between the referee, Jeff Eltringham, and his assistant, they've given it the way of Derby. Ethan Byrne takes it, gets it back off Holmes, shifts it into his goalkeeper Marshall, and Matt Clark for Derby. Just lacking that zip at times, as I mentioned, extenuating circumstances with the hectic nature of the international break. Players only just returning, some of them today, from those duties. You can forgive the players if it's not quite the fast, ferocious pace that you would normally come to expect from a championship game, but you feel that he's lifted a little bit. Rooney wins a free kick for Derby, whips it across to Clark on the halfway line. Now Shinnie, does he turn into trouble there? It's a little bit fortuitous of Graham Shinnie to get the free kick. Nathaniel Chalobah penalised, he was frustrated. We work it to the right hand side with Byrne. Now Evans gets it back off Curtis Davis and plays the ball down the right hand channel. It's well left by Bird, but Holmes tries to return it to the Derby midfielder and it breaks down. Troostekong now for Watford. Cross to Christian Kabasele. Plenty of experience in that Watford backline. No wonder they have been solid defensively so far this season. Kabasele's been an ever-present. Sprays it across to Femenia. Sema now. Into Cleverly. Down the left with Femenia once again. Domingos Quinhas had a quiet game. He's come centrally to get involved. Wilmot, that's a slide rule ball through. Surely João Pedro is offside. He does finish it, lifting it over David Marshall, but the whistle had long but gone, and offside flag raised by fourth official, come linesman Tim Robinson. Not too much doubt about this one. Clearly a yard or so offside when the ball was played by Wilmot. Doesn't count as a shot on target, unfortunately, as well, because it took place after the whistle had been blown. We are craving a shot on target in this game, it has to be said. None so far. Could change now as Derby break forward with Knight down the left-hand side, but he's marshalled well by Kabasele. Belgium international Christian Kabasele. Very good experienced central defender. They have Craig Cathcart on the bench as well, Watford. He probably would have been playing, but again, been away on international duty with Northern Ireland. Troostekong, Nigerian international as well. There's so much strength and depth there for Watford. You can see why they were able to allow Craig Dawson to leave on loan. As Jason Knight brings the ball forward for Derby, looking to test that Watford rear guard. Knight rolls it out to Byrne on the right hand side. He'll clip across into the box. It's headed away by Wilmot. Cleverly scoops it further clear, but not the best for Tom Cleverly, who's gone down as well. Looks to be in a little bit of discomfort. That might have been a reason why he didn't get much oomph from that clearance, holding the small of his back. Play goes on for now. It's Watford in possession, and Gakia does well. Plays it around the corner to Sema, who's momentarily at least moved across to the right hand side. Rolls it back now to Troostekong. Cleverly still struggling a little bit. He's back on his feet and receives the ball from William Troostekong. He's able to shovel it out to Femenia. I think he is okay, Cleverly. I just felt a slight twinge, and sometimes you can have that moment of panic, can't you? But sometimes it can be something of nothing as well. This is a loose ball from Ngakia, picked off by Shinnie. Sent over the top by Buchanan, but again, there's been a lot of those percentage balls from Derby, which is not really giving Wayne Rooney anything to feed on. Glad when Colin Kazim-Richards is fully up to speed and can join the first team for all. The man signed yesterday. Martin Wycorn still not fit. Tom Lawrence on the bench could be an option to come on and support Rooney in this game. That's nice football down the right hand side between Rooney and Holmes. Don't have enough defenders back though on the cover. Derby will have to come again with Dwayne Holmes down the right hand flank. Links up with Byrne. Burns' return ball to Holmes was a little loose. That invited the challenger Cleverley, who clearly has made a full recovery. Well, when he went into that challenge, it'll be a Derby throw-in. 53.5 minutes on the clock. Derby 0, Watford 0. Max Bird for the home side. Into Shinnie. Clark now on halfway. Finds Buchanan, who flicks it against the legs of Ngakia, who was closing down. That'll be a throw-in to Derby, which is taken and worked backwards towards Curtis Davis. He clips the ball down the right-hand channel, but it's seen off comfortably enough by Ben Wilmot. The ball cleared upfield. Derby will look to come again though. Shinnie into Bird. Holmes flicks it round the corner. I think Rooney was the intended target. Almost breaks to Knight. Troost-Ekong makes sure it doesn't. Now Semmer on the halfway, allowed to turn. We'll try to feed it round the corner to João Pedro. It was an important interception. It was Evans who got his foot to the ball. João Pedro now picks it up on the left. Derby wanted offside. It's not forthcoming. The Brazilian will run at the Derby backline. He's got Cleverley in support. He ignores his skipper and plays a loose ball into the area, which is easily picked off by Buchanan. Carrying the ball up towards halfway. A decent performance so far from Lee Buchanan, it has to be said. The Derby left wing back, one of the young brigade in Philip Koku's team. George Evans now finds Shinnie. He's very much the deep lying of the midfielders. It's allowing Bird to get a bit more advanced at times. Graham Shinnie gives the ball over the top, looking for Holmes, who couldn't quite get it under control under pressure from Wilmot. Ball will ricochet through harmlessly enough to Ben Foster. Kabasele now down the line to Ngakia. Chalobah under pressure there from Shinnie, rolls it back to Kabasele once more. Now Wilmot will look to go down the left with Femenia. Loose pass though from him is easily cut off by Curtis Davis. Nathan Byrne then slips for Derby, but is quick enough to get back to his feet and flip the ball down the line. It comes off Femenia. It will be a Derby throw. Holmes takes quickly, finds Rooney. Rooney now will sense where the space is and go out to Buchanan on the left-hand side. Knight's in support for him. The newly capped Republic of Ireland international made his debut against Finland in Finland just 48 hours ago. Nathan Byrne now clips the ball towards Rooney. He tried to flick it on. He sensed that Knight was behind him, but Troost-Ekong got an important touch. Not been overworked, William Troost-Ekong, on his Watford debut, but he's done everything he needed to do tidily and without fuss. Likewise, Christian Kabasele, who's in possession as I speak. The Belgian just saunters up towards the halfway line. Cleverly then pulls it back to Troost-Ekong. Will angle the ball over the top, looking for Semmer. It's a decent attempted pass. Semmer gets it under control. He's turned away from Evans really nicely. It's good play from Ken Semmer, who's fouled just outside the area by George Evans. He does provide a bit of an X factor for Watford at times, Ken Semmer. He's not always the most consistent of players, but that was a lovely turn. He had the pace and power as well to just drive beyond Evans, who was a bit bamboozled. Puts his arm across Semmer and brings him down just outside the penalty area. Not much contact, but enough for the foul, and enough deems Jeff Eltringham, the referee, to hand out the game's first yellow card. It's the first yellow of the season as well for George Evans. And Derby with some defending to do. Watford had a free kick in a similar position in the first half, which Semmer took, and it was dealt with reasonably well, Derby, from a defensive point of view. This, though, will be a right-footed in-swinger from Domingos Quina. It's only probably less than a yard outside the penalty area on this left-hand side. It's a two-man wall for Derby. Byrne and Holmes as Quina whips it in with pace. Evans Tones for giving the free kick away by flicking the ball clear, and it stayed in. It's actually ricocheted against the corner flag. That happened in the first half as well over there, so that corner flag's had a couple of touches. The ball eventually does spin out for a Watford throw in. Decent ball in from Kinya, but as we said, it was well defended as well by Evans. Watford worked the throw in short, and that's good feet by Sema down the right hand side. Again, it breaks down to Chalobah, who gets a shot away in the box. It takes a deflection. Chalobah's incensed. He feels it struck the arm of a Derby player. Really good little period this for Watford. Oh, cut back towards Chalobah. He hit it with pace, and it does come off the arm of Evans. Arms are slightly in an unnatural position, but he is trying to block. I don't think that would be a very harsh penalty call. Jeff Eltringham not interested. The arms are up a little bit, but it's so close, and he's thrown himself at the ball, Evans. I would never describe that as an unnatural position. Sema sends the resulting corner into the box. It breaks to Chalobah again. Can't get a shot away. He's held up. Has to work it back out to the corner taker, Sema. He pulls it back for Kinya. Back now to Sema. Oh, he's asking a lot of Sema there. Kinya. Sema digs out some kind of cross, but straight into the arms of David Marshall. But certainly a talking point there, that Chalobah effort blocked. Whether it could potentially have been a penalty for handball. Still Derby 0, Watford 0 in this game. Watford have had a half appeal for a penalty. It was a shot from Nathaniel Chalobah that was closed down by George Evans. Definitely struck the arm of the Derby central defender, but it was from such close range, and he's thrown himself at the ball. It would have been a very harsh decision to point to the spot. Watford were incensed, but referee Jeff Eltringham wasn't interested. We've had no changes to the respective starting 11s so far, although there has been an official change. One of the linesmen, James Wilson, has had to be replaced by fourth official Tim Robinson, who is now running one of the lines. Still Derby 0, Watford 0. Yeah, that is probably the main talking point so far, that Watford penalty appeal. I think the referee was perfectly right not to point to the spot. Actually, Ngakia with the work, it was flicked on by João Pedro, the ball in. Yeah, he's not even a yard away, Evans, from Chalobah when he's blocking the ball. Jeff Eltringham had a great view as well, well positioned, the referee. I think that was the right call. But in a game of few opportunities, it's certainly a talking point. They did have that half penalty appeal on the stroke of half time as well, where there was grappling from Buchanan on Cleverley, although that was more 6-1, half a dozen of the other. I think on both occasions the referee has made the right call. So it looks like Tom Lawrence is getting ready for Derby. He's had his injury problems at the start of the season. The Wales international wasn't on international duty because of that. Yet to feature so far this term, so it will be his first appearance. This game Lawrence was involved in was back in July, the 3-1 home defeat to Leeds, where he was forced off after just 7 minutes of that game with injury. Derby supporters will be glad to see him back, and his return to the pitch is imminent. There's a free kick given away there. Tom Cleverley penalised on the halfway line for getting a little bit frustrated. Jason Knight's the man who's been brought down. Knight might be one of the candidates to go off. As I say, made his international debut as a substitute for the Republic of Ireland during the week, just 48 hours or so ago. Travelling to Finland as well, travelling back. It may be that he's just running out of steam. Ball over the top towards Dwayne Holmes there. It was angled by Evans. Bounce always favour Ben Foster, who was able to claim. Just 1% ball over the top there. Almost got Derby in behind. For now in possession. Ngakia, whose cross led to that shot from Chalobah and the penalty appeal that ensued. Many are now closed down by Holmes. It'll be a Watford throw-in. So on the halfway line. Still awaiting Tom Lawrence's arrival in the game. I'll say it probably will be Jason Knight who comes off, as Lawrence is now being introduced. Watford, the Derby number 10. It's actually Dwayne Holmes who's going off. I'm a bit surprised at that. Lawrence on. That isn't a surprise. Philip Cocu, the first of the two managers to shuffle his pack. Can't imagine it'll be too long till Watford do likewise. Glenn Murray, the obvious choice to come on. Ben Foster clears for Watford. First touch with Tom Lawrence is loose. Gives it away. Cleverly now for Watford. To Chalobah. He gets it back off Troost-Ekong. Chalobah and Cleverly need to offer a little bit more in the middle of the park. Quina as well. Really getting support to João Pedro. Ken Sema's trying, and it's looked the most likely candidate in a yellow shirt. He's in possession at the moment, the Swede. One or two more of those really experienced players need to follow suit. That's better from Cleverly. Looking over the top for Chalobah, who will keep it in play. And cue those two offering a little bit more. Femenia now crosses into the box. It's behind though João Pedro and Ngakia. The two players who got into the area, and it goes out for a goal kick. But that was a little bit more proactive all round from Watford. They haven't been scoring many goals so far this season, it has to be said. So they lost to Reading last time out by 1-0. Just looking at Watford's goals, they've got 2 and conceded 1 in their 4 games so far this season in the Championship. Derby have only scored 2 themselves, although they have conceded 8. 4 of those did come in one match against Blackburn, but Watford have had a 1-0 win, a 0-0 draw, a 1-0 win and a 1-0 defeat so far. Not scored on their travels. So this scoreline is not really a surprise, as Wayne Rooney trying to change the deadlock we're in, squares it across, and a strike comes in from Knight. He's in a more central position there, goes well wide of the target. He's a little bit frustrated. It's half an opening, good play from Rooney, good strength as well to hold off Troost-Ekong. Squeeze it out to Knight. Just sliced across the ball as Ben Wilmot closed him down. To the final 25 minutes of the 90. Derby 0, Watford 0. Nothing ball sent forward there by Ngakia. Derby will be able to start again. Marshall bowls it out to Evans. Bird. Cross to Clark. Was a poor ball from him, intercepted by Quina. Slips but retains possession. Ngakia now. This is pocket picked by Lawrence. Lawrence has gone out to the left-hand side, incidentally. Knight switched across to the right for Derby, which is why he was in that position to have that strike a few seconds ago. Very much seems to be 3-4-2-1 or 3-4-3 formation. Lawrence and Knight will try and get forward and support Rooney as much as they can. Over the top there by Byrne. It's up for Rooney to chase. Doesn't quite have the legs these days though, Wayne Rooney, to get on the end of those kind of balls. Campasele was able to get across on the cover. Femenia now for Watford, infield to Tom Cleverly. Cleverly will look early over the top. That's been a tactic from Watford, particularly in this second half. João Pedro a willing runner. Evans there to intercept for Derby. It will though be a throw into the visitors. Deep inside Derby territory. Femenia will take. Goes down the line to Quina. Moved off the ball there by Nathan Byrne. Although it wasn't enough of a nudge for the referee to give a foul, so Derby have won possession back. Quarter of the game remaining. Derby 0, Watford 0. Still no shots on target in the match. That will be a disappointment for both Philip Cocu and Vladimir Ivic. So we've had a few shots at either end now, 6 apiece. 6 in total, 3 apiece. Not on target. Ball sent long there by Marshall. It's back from where it came, and that forces Evans into a rather hurried clearance, but he's got plenty of purchase on it. It's picked up by Knight on the Derby right. Into Byrne. Byrne now goes back to Evans. Derby will build again through their goalkeeper David Marshall. Curtis Davis, well, that's a poor ball from him, intercepted by Chalobah, flicked over the top by Sema. João Pedro now can turn, find Quina, edge of the penalty area, cutting it onto his right foot. Domingos Quina shoots, it's blocked by Evans. Spins out to Ngakia though, now on the Watford right. He links up with Sema. Sema beats his man brilliantly. That's good play from Ken Sema. Got away from Buchanan with ease. Cut back though, intercepted by Matt Clark. Ken Sema looking the most likely Watford player. He has moved across to this right hand side, swapping with Quina for the time being. There's the ball into the feet of Chalobah, who's marshalled by Clark. Was he fouled by Clark? Yes he was, says the referee. Free kick to Watford. Midway inside the Derby half, in a very central position, so it's not exactly an ideal angle to try and lift the ball into the box, but Trostakong and Wilmot are making their way forward. Watford are taking it quickly though, cleverly out to the right hand side. Sema cross into the box. It's a really good delivery, and it's an important interception from Curtis Davis, again using his experience to intercept that ball. Brilliant across though from Sema. The Watford throwing over on the far side there, right. Ngakia will take. Short to Quina. Back to Jeremy Ngakia. Squeeze into Sema, who turns, does nicely. Finds Quina, corner of the box. Tries to tee up cleverly. When he gets a shot away, the referee almost got in his way there. He squeezed it out to the right hand side, and Ngakia's cross is closed down. There will be another Watford throw-in that they are starting to go through the gears, the visitors. We're about to enter the final 20 minutes. We're about to see a Watford change as well. I think that's Craig Cathcart who's being readied. It's a defender. The throwing comes on from Ngakia, but Derby win the ball back. Lawrence up towards Rooney, but Watford have it again, and signs are just building up a little bit of a head of steam. Still Derby 0, Watford 0. Derby have made a change. Tom Lawrence has come on to replace Dwayne Holmes, but it's Watford who are probably looking the more likely side at the moment. Some dangerous crosses coming into the box. Ken Sema looking particularly lively. He's in fact the one player on the pitch from an attacking point of view that looks like creating something or doing something a bit different. He put a delicious cross in a few minutes ago that was dealt with well by Curtis Davis. Davis has also defended well from a Jeremy Ngakia cross into the box, but yeah, he's the most likely man, Ken Sema. Watford look the most likely team as well at the moment, but as it stands, there's still no shot on target in this game. Derby 0, Watford 0. And Watford have a corner. Before that, though, Craig Cathcart is replacing William Trostakong, who I think had a sturdy debut, perhaps just running out of steam. So we'll be given a rest as Quina's corner into the box is headed down, and Kabasele, I think, took a couple of deflections and runs harmlessly through to David Marshall. Good ball in from Quina. Yeah, kind of off the shoulder of Kabasele and ricocheted around. Final break favouring Derby's goalkeeper. Cathcart on for Trostakong. As I say, the reason Cathcart probably wasn't in the starting lineup is because of his international exploits. He's had too much football at the moment. Trostakong hasn't had enough. He's on now. Slot into that back three, you'd imagine, pretty seamlessly. Some defenders to do as Derby venture forward. It's Matt Clark down the left hand side, supported by Buchanan. Now Shinnie gives it back to Lee Buchanan. Derby's turn to have a bit of possession. They haven't really had it for the last 10 minutes or so. Knight goes back towards Evans. Bird. All this taking place in and around the centre circle. Clark will now clip over the top, but it's a poor ball. Wayne Rooney just looks and shrugs his shoulders. Percentage ball, nothing more. Now run harmlessly through to Ben Foster. Gets it back off Wilmot. Slips as he clears that Foster, and it goes straight out of play for a throw-in. So they made a little bit of a mess of that there, Watford. Vladimir Ivic barking some instructions out to his team. Derby 0, Watford 0 it remains. Max Bird for Derby. Into Shinnie. He invites Clark to stride over the halfway line. Shinnie gets it again. Nice turn from Lawrence. He benefits from a slip from Cathcart as well. Lawrence driving towards the edge of the penalty area, and we have a shot on target at last. It's taken the 74 minutes in this game. But Tom Lawrence shot easily saved, it has to be said, from the edge of the area by Foster. But maybe that means that could start something. Maybe we're going to have a real grandstand finish in this game. Chalobah cups the ball forward for Watford. Senna chests it down to João Pedro. Was he fouled there? He fell quite dramatically. It looked like he was losing the ball, but the referee has given the free kick. Graham Shinnie penalised. He pleads his innocence. So I think João Pedro just was losing the ball, and he waited or left his leg in for the contact from Shinnie. Clever striking play is probably one way of describing it. He's got his side a free kick, which is what he wanted. It's a long way out though. Pushing towards 35 yards, I would say, right in the centre. Nathaniel Chalobah's placed the ball, and he's taking a position. Like he might want to strike it. It's probably closer to 40 yards actually. Chalobah is going to strike towards goal. It whistles over the top of the crossbar. It was a good clean hit, but to say that was ambitious would be quite a lenient way of looking at it. But when shots and goal have been at a premium, you can't say I blame him too much. The former Chelsea youngster, as I say, has one England international cap to his name. Marshall, who's got plenty for Scotland, 3 clean sheets and 3 victories for him during the international break. 2 victories and 1 penalty shootout success, of which he was the hero in that Euro 2020 playoff semi-final against Israel. Marshall undoubtedly will be involved when the Scots take on Serbia in Belgrade next month. Match to decide which of those 2 teams reaches the European Championship finals. As what a curling strike from João Pedro from the edge of the area, and he finds the top corner, beating the man I was just talking about, David Marshall, and that is the moment of quality that this game has been crying out for, and it comes from a young talent with his 2nd strike of the season for Watford, his 2nd Watford goal. Again, it looked like there was nothing really on. It's rolled into him by Ben Wilmot, who carries the ball forward. He turns, edge of the area, thinks why not, and curls it, angles it beautifully into the top corner. No chance for Marshall. Watford in front. At long last, the deadlock has been broken in this game. It's Derby 0, Watford 1. This game has lacked so much quality throughout it, but we've just had a moment of magic, perhaps worthy of winning the game, from João Pedro. He gets the ball on the edge of the area. He's allowed to turn by the Derby defenders, and he thinks, why not? I'll try and curl this in the top corner. That's exactly what he does. No chance for David Marshall in the Derby goal. It's his 2nd championship goal of the season. It's Derby 0, Watford 1. Brilliant moment for the young Brazilian. Joined Watford from his home country during the January transfer window. Didn't feature too much in the Premier League last season. Very much the leading light though at the moment, particularly with the likes of Deeney, Gray, Sarr, all seemingly out of favour. Really, really good goal from João Pedro and for Watford. How are Derby going to respond from this? They've won one of their 4 games so far. This would be 4 defeats in 5. If they were to lose this game, it would heap the pressure on Philip Cocu. Pressure has been growing. And Derby perhaps potentially going to be in the relegation zone by the end of the weekend. Start in 20th place. Not going to be going any higher than that, that's for certain, unless they can turn things around in these remaining 12.5 minutes plus stoppage time. Derby 0, Watford 1. Ball with Jeremy Ngakia for Watford. His cross is clearance is deflected, but it falls kindly from Watford point of view for Tom Cleverley. Cleverley scrapping away well there, and was he fouled by Jason Knight? I think he was. The referee's blown his whistle. Free kick to Watford, who were getting frustrated at one point in this 2nd half, but I think they'll be feeling a lot better about themselves now. And the first shot on target of the night. 50% strike rate, if you like. As Ben Wilmot prepares to take this free kick. Clip it, angle it from left to right, looking for Sema, who's beaten in the air by Buchanan. Bird now for Derby, gets it back off Jason Knight, the two youngsters, academy products linking up. Now Lawrence steps in field, that's a lovely ball. Rooney is in behind. Wayne Rooney for Derby, and he sends it wide of the target. That was the opening that they were looking for. Tom Lawrence making a difference since coming on, finds Rooney, and you would have put all your money on Rooney scoring there, but he sends it wide of the target. What a moment that could prove to be. Yes, Kabasele was getting back and probably does just about enough to put Rooney off, but Wayne Rooney has scored so many goals throughout his career. You would have put anything really on him netting there, but he wasn't able to do so. And is that the opportunity that Derby and their skipper are going to rue? Alas, this game has come to life, though. As the challenge goes in there, a really good play from Kenya to win it back off Evans. Kenya now running at the Derby centre-back, who's on a yellow card. He's into the penalty area. Domingos Kenya curls it towards goal. Goes through the legs of Curtis Davis. I thought it took a nick, but goal kick has been given. All of a sudden this game is opening up and it's got pretty lively. Not sure if that's to do with tired minds and legs. We've just had a little bit of an up in quality. Certainly with the goal we've had an up in quality from João Pedro. As Derby react, they make a change. Graham Shinney is coming off and Jamal Hector Ingram is going to come on. So that's a striker for a midfielder. Hector Ingram, who started today being linked with a loan move to League 2 Carlisle, but now getting some minutes. Is his second appearance on the bench of the season in the Championship. Looks like he's going to go up front alongside Wayne Rooney. Rooney may drop a little bit deeper eventually. I'm sure he'll be grateful of the support. That's Bird now. Finds Rooney. Gets it back off Clark. Now Bird again. To get things moving, Derby County. Bird squeezes it out to the left-hand side. Buchanan pulls it back for Clark. So Watford side, they've only conceded one goal so far this season in the Championship. That goal coming last time out, away at Reading. Very, very resilient now, the Hornets. Rooney the ball out towards Byrne, who has to scamper to keep it in play as well, but he has been forced backwards, and now Evans goes all the way back to David Marshall in the Derby goal. George Evans once more into Knight, getting a more central role now, it would seem. Clark invited forward, he's got Buchanan on his left hand side, finds the wing back. Now Bird. There's a wall of yellow in front of him. So hard for Derby to play their way through. They need to move it quickly and try and stretch this Watford defence. It's so well drilled, it seems, under Vladimir Ivic. Byrne pulls it back to Evans once again. Now Clark. Knight takes over. It's all been played in front of the Watford defence though at the moment. Byrne looking to change that. Comes in field to Bird. Clark back into Max Bird. Asking, beckoning players to show for him. Not forthcoming at the moment. I put that down to good Watford defending though more than anything. Davies, he'll have a rare venture forward. He's linking up with Clark. Two centre-backs down the left-hand side for Derby. It's reached that stage of the game, but between them they can't find a way through, although Ben Foster's clearance for Watford has presented Derby with possession once again, and it's Tom Lawrence, one of the players they probably want to get on the ball as much as possible. We're back now to Evans. Nathan Byrne rolls it forward, first touch for the substitute there, Hector Ingram. He loses out, and Kenya can now bring the ball forward for Watford. He's driving at that Derby backline once again, a tiring Derby backline. Kenya has support from João Pedro in a similar position to where he's just scored that spectacular goal. This time he tries to take on Curtis Davis, who holds him up. wincing now, Pedro, as he lays the ball back. That's a concern for Watford. Christian Kabasele tidies up at the other end. Ben Foster slices his clearance out of play for a throw, despite the best efforts of Femenia. João Pedro looks in discomfort, and he's gone down now. He's stretching out as if it might be cramp. Stretching both of the hamstrings there, it would seem. So he's taking on Curtis Davis. Stopped well by the centre-back. Just seemed to pull up slightly. Feeling the cramp was about to take place. May well be withdrawing. Risk of doing any further injury. The way he was stretching would suggest it is more cramp than anything, so I don't think it's anything too concerning for Vladimir Ivic and his team in the long term, but they won't really want João Pedro to go off. He's fed off scraps for most of the evening, but he scored a spectacular goal. That's a sign of a good striker. But Glenn Murray is a ready-made replacement on the bench. First real delay we've had in the match throughout. There wasn't any stoppage time at the end of the first half, but we'll get a bit now, particularly with this delay. The left leg that's causing the particular concern for João Pedro. Glenn Murray is now stripped and ready for action. Cameo appearance for the experienced 36-year-old, I believe he is now. 37. Just turned 37, Glenn Murray, at the end of last month. In the twilight of his career, whilst the man he's replacing, João Pedro, is 18 years his senior. In fact, 26th of September 2001, João Pedro was born. Glenn Murray was born the day before that and 18 years earlier, so it tells its own story, as Morgan Whittaker is on for Lee Buchanan for Derby. That's their third and final change. Watford their second, with Murray coming on for João Pedro, who's able to walk off the pitch. Looks reasonably okay, but Morgan Whittaker on to add a bit more attacking spice for Derby. Buchanan got a decent game. It's forward on for a wing back. Time is not Derby's friend, no. Into the final 4 minutes just about, plus stoppage time. As I say, it will be a decent whack of that because of the João Pedro treatment. But they have to get a move on the home side, otherwise it's going to be another home defeat. Remember, they've lost all 3 of their previous games this season across all competitions at Pride Park, and this would be a third game without a goal in the Championship as well on home soil. Been difficult for Philip Cocker. He's had to turn to youth and sell some of the big earners on his books. As they look to come forward now, it's Tom Lawrence, strikes towards goal. It's blocked by Wilmot. Spins out of play for a throw-in on the Derby right. No Dwayne Holmes to hurl the ball into the box with a long throw now. He's been replaced, of course. It's taken short instead by Nathan Byrne. Derby have got back-to-back away games after this in the Championship at Huddersfield, and then that East Midlands derby against Nottingham Forest. This cross comes in from Whittaker. First involvement of him down the left-hand side. It's deflected or blocked behind by Ngakia for a corner to Derby. James Garner's being prepared by Watford as well, incidentally, as their third and final change. Rooney will take this corner. He goes short. Watford have switched off, actually. Whittaker into the penalty area, low. Drill ball into the box. It's cleared away, but only as far as Lawrence, whose shot is blocked by Cleverley. There's appeals for handball from Derby, but I don't think that can even be close to being considered. Cleverley's not happy that Derby are even asking that question. Why smile on Tom Lawrence's face? Yeah, it's into the midriff of Cleverley. Ambitious appeals, to say the least, from the Derby players. That's even less of a penalty, or a lot less of a penalty than the appeal at the other end when it did strike the arm of George Evans. Actually, it does hit the back of the arm, the back of the tricep of Cleverley, but again, so close to him. Arms right by his body. You can't really do anything about that. As the third and final Watford change takes place, Dominguez Quina has gone off. relatively quiet performance from him, and James Garner on. A little bit more defensive steel, you'd imagine, in these closing exchanges. The man on loan from Manchester United. England under 20 international. So Watford throwing on deep inside their own half on their left. Kiko Femenia will take it into the final 90 seconds of the 90. Derby 0, Watford 1. Ball turn around the corner there by Whittaker. One for Hector Ingram to chase, but chase was in vain. It'll be a throw into Watford, and they're in no hurry to take it, as you can imagine. Return to winning ways. This will move them into the, only up a couple of places actually, but up to 5th. Level on points with Swansea and Bournemouth. Of course, both Derby and Watford will have played a game more than the rest of their rivals, who will all be in action over the weekend. Ooh, David Marshall there just rolls the ball, or passes the ball out to Matt Clark, but Glenn Murray slipped. He might have actually been able to intercept that had he not, Murray. Derby now have a throw in high up the pitch, and there's an element of urgency about how Morgan Whittaker grabs the ball. They need to get things going, the home side. Get the second bite of the cherry as the ball goes back out off a Watford player. Final seconds of the 90. Derby 0, Watford 1. Whittaker takes the throw in, finds Lawrence, who's been lively since coming on. So flick it down the line for Whittaker, but asking too much of the youngster, and Ngakia does a good job of just shuffling that ball out of play. We'll have 4 minutes of stoppage time at the end of the match. 4 minutes for Derby to try and force an equaliser. 4 minutes for Watford to at the very least hold on. Philip Cocu's not happy with that amount of time. I think it's about right. João Pedro went down injured, and that's the bulk of where that 4 minutes will come from. As I said, when he went down, there haven't really been too many stoppages. Yes, we had the substitutions and a little bit of a delay from the goal, but I think 4 minutes is just about spot on. Nathaniel Chalobah for Watford. Just squeeze it forward. Garner fighting to win it back. Chalobah then goes in with a strong challenge of his own, gets plenty of the ball. Derby will look to start again though with Matt Clark. Shows good composure, steps away from Chalobah. Bird now down the line to Nathan Byrne. Byrne looking for options. Lawrence wanted it played down the line. Instead Bird will loft it into the penalty area looking for Hector Ingram. But that always favoured Ben Foster, who claims with plenty of authority. And will use all his experience now to slow things down. The 37-year-old goalkeeper. A couple of months older than Glenn Murray, incidentally. This is opposite number David Marshall. Plays out to Evans. Angle ball from right to left. Whittaker struggling to control the bouncing ball, and he's eased off it by Ngakia. Cathcart then didn't do Ngakia any favours with the pass, and Derby might have an opportunity. Knight surely was wiped out there by Wilmot. That's a really poor challenge actually from Ben Wilmot. He deservedly goes into the referee's notebook. The second yellow card of the match. First Watford player to be cautioned. Never getting to the ball there. I think he was just making sure Knight couldn't capitalise. Jason Knight done well, incidentally, the full 90 minutes. Just 48 hours after making his international debut in Finland for the Republic of Ireland. This is a free kick though in Wayne Rooney territory, and he scored a late free kick winning goal against Norwich before the international break. Derby are going to need that kind of magic now. That was in the 87th minute. This is in the 93rd. It's a similar position though. Left of centre suits the right foot of Rooney. Ben Wilmot could live to regret that lunging challenge. Well, 23 yards out, so this is perfect for a right footer really. Watford have got a 5-man wall. What can Wayne Rooney produce? He's done this time after time in the past. With the recent and the fairly distant past, as Rooney steps up, curls it over the Watford wall, and only just over the top of the crossbar. Decent effort from Wayne Rooney. He had a glorious chance though, didn't he, just after Watford went 1-0 up, where he should have scored to equalise. Really good effort there, actually, looking at the replay. Foster was scrambling, and I'm not sure he would have got there, the goalkeeper. Into the final 40 seconds of stoppage time now. Derby 0, Watford 1. Watford just about over the line. Foster clips it forward. It'll be their first away win of the season in the league as well for the Hornets. First away win in the Championship since beating Brighton 2-0 at the Amex back in April 2015. What can Derby do to stop that, though? It's Nathan Byrne. Last attack of the game, surely. Feeds it into the feet of Rooney, who can't control. It's cleared away by Cleverley. It will be a throw-in to Derby. Although there's not going to be time to take it. The Watford players are celebrating. They have got their first win in the Championship for more than 5 years. A brilliant result for Vladimir Ivic. But another defeat for Philip Cocu in Derby County. The pressure continues to mount on the Rams boss. They could end this weekend in the Championship relegation zone. For Watford, they're up into the playoff places for the time being, at least. João Pedro's moment of magic, the difference between the two sides, the full-time score, Derby 0, Watford 1.